What comes to mind when you think VRChat? Maybe it's the avatars, maybe the wacky people you meet, the memes that are made funnier thanks to the avatars and animations. Maybe just hanging out and watching YouTube with some friends. Or perhaps it's the thought of having a modern virtual take on the classic chat room that we all know from the past. For me though, it's about the creations that the community have made. There are a lot of people who use VRChat, and over time, a massive creative community has grown and they've crafted some truly amazing things. One of those things that has drawn me in the most are the locations the VRChat community have made, also known as the worlds. I've played VRChat kind of on and off since it came out in 2017, but never really paid attention to what it was actually offering. Now, I feel like it has transformed our perception of what a chat room actually is, and also showcases where chat rooms as a whole are heading, and it interests me. I went on a virtual expedition to the VRChat universe to explore the ridiculously vast amount of worlds that are available, and wanted to talk about the places I've been. I guess this is kind of like a list of my favorite kinds of worlds and why I like them. So if that's the kind of thing you want to see right now, sit back, grab a drink, and join me on this journey to find some of the reasons that tens of thousands of people flock to this vast virtual landscape every day. I'm Yomada, and this is the wonderful worlds of VRChat. You load into a world. You find yourself in an elevator going down. The title of this world is shown as you arrive at your destination. After being given an epilepsy warning, you're presented with a walkway towards a bright flashing light. I know it said epilepsy warning, but what exactly is going on here, you think to yourself. As you reach the end of the walkway, you find that the place opens up, and you realize that the light you were walking towards is much, much further away than you originally thought. After having a look at your surroundings, you notice some kind of terminal. A1 beacon. Detonate, it reads. Well, we're here now. May as well see what this does, right? So you go and press it. And suddenly... When I first saw this, I was absolutely gobsmacked. I was so impressed at the way the world gave me a glimpse of a story and left me to fill in the rest for myself. What's going on here? Why is there such a destructive force built here, and what is its purpose? All we know is that it's a beacon of some sort. Or maybe it's a weapon. What were the consequences of activating this colossal device that seemed to have maybe even self-destructed after use? Or perhaps even as a result of its use? What's it like outside of this facility? And how did this affect the world outside? If it's a beacon, then what is it supposed to be signaling? And why is no one around to see it? Or maybe it is what it is at first glance. A cool little world where you can see a massive explosion, fly fighter jets and have dogfights with the boys. Oh yeah, and you can fly awesome fighter jets around as everything happens, but I left that out for theatrical effect. But either way, for me, and the way I see these kinds of worlds, it sets my imagination alight and I end up appreciating the art even more. The world I just described falls under what I call set-piece worlds, and is the first type I wanted to talk about. These are my favorite types of worlds and usually have some kind of audio-visual experience that may tell some kind of story, whether it be with straight up text in your face, or through that juicy environmental storytelling. Or again, maybe they're just there to look amazing and I end up thinking about it too much. But that still says a lot about the presentation of the world, be it intentional or a happy accident. Some of them may have some activities to do in order to move on to the next section of the world or unlock more to see. Some might just play some music and show you light shows or cool effects that go in time with the audio. These are dope too, but I tend to gravitate more towards the worlds where you do some kind of activity while experiencing the set piece as a result or a reward for doing said activity. For example, in the world Astral Bounds by Vectriel, you have a treasure hunt kind of situation where you have to find these crystals which progress the ongoing spectacle in the sky. I loved what this world had to offer, and where I'm not necessarily a huge fan of treasure hunts, the prospect of seeing what's next drove me to carry on searching. Activities like this bring to life that game side of things and gets you more involved rather than just making you a spectator in the set piece. But when there isn't a set piece or crazy spectacle as a reward, activities in VRChat are still always welcome in my books. Which brings us to the next type of world, the activity worlds. Worlds that have been created around the idea of having an activity or a goal takes a chat room, puts it in VR, and turns it up to 100. There are mazes, escape rooms, spooky mazes and escape rooms, game shows, and even Dungeons and Dragons worlds with functioning interactive elements, so it's possible to plan and host a full campaign. I just love the idea of playing a D&D campaign with your avatar set to be your actual character in-game. There's just so much to do and so many unique little games to take part in. No wonder why there's people out there who have a VR headset and spend most of, if not all of their time in VRChat. One of my recent favourite activity worlds though is VRware. In this game world, up to 50 people can take part in a chaotic game show where you have to do what it says on the screen to earn points. Kinda like Simon Says, it's all just a great time and it's made so much better with VR. We've also seen some VRChat versions of social deduction games, such as Town of Salem, Murder Mystery, Werewolves, and even Among Us. Playing these games in VRC adds such a wacky level of fun to already chaotic games. There's something extra hilarious about accusing Batman of lying and telling a group of anime characters that he was the bad guy, knowing full well that it was you and Solid Snake all along. It's all just very stupid and I love it. With so much to do and see in VRChat, there will of course be times where you just kind of want to hang out and relax. Maybe you've hopped between worlds for a couple of hours and it's time to wind down with your friends and talk about the shenanigans of the day. And when that time comes, you'll probably end up in what I call the chill zones. In VRChat, you're able to set a world as your home. This makes it so that every time you log into the game, your home world is the first place you load into. Relaxing places with cool scenery and some chill ambient sounds or music are what I normally use for my home, but a lot of these also make for a nice spot to hang out, alone or with others. VR usually tends to be associated with being active and moving around a lot or standing up for hours, but it's also nice to just chill out and vibe in a virtual world. One of my personal favourites is Zora's Domain from Zelda Breath of the Wild by Maniku. The sound of the water, with the nostalgic soundtrack from the game with the soothing blue colour palette, is just so serene that I found myself just sitting back looking at Hyrule, reflecting on the day I've had. It's just super chill, man. I haven't tried meditating in VR, but I can imagine some of these worlds helping me get into that comfortable state of mind you get in while being in a relaxed environment. You know, that state that people who have restless brains sometimes have trouble getting into. A cool feature I found in many chill zones is the video player. Just having a video on while you hang out in a virtual world is something that might not make sense to you until you try it, but it really adds to the feeling of being there with someone in the same room, and I think it's a cool way to keep in touch with online friends. It's cute to think that there might be some long distance relationships where the time apart can be made just a bit easier because of something like VRChat and these kinds of worlds. Shouts to all you long distancers making it work while the world constantly tells you it won't. Respect. Now, with all these different types of weird, wonderful, and wacky worlds out there, they all have one thing in common. And it's actually something that kind of falls into its own little category. Art. I wanted to mention VR art in particular. VR art being pieces of art that have been created in virtual reality. For those who may not know, the introduction of VR brought about innovations in digital art. Now, we're able to create works of full 3D art by actually creating it around us. There are a few pieces of software out there that are centered around this, but Tilt Brush, in my opinion, is probably the most impressive one in terms of creating 3D art around you in a virtual environment. Some insanely talented artists are featured in worlds that showcases their work in an extravagant way, and some of these museum-like worlds are such a treat to visit. Physically going to an art gallery in real life is one thing, but virtually going to a VRChat art gallery and transporting yourself into people's work is an experience I think everybody needs to try. I kinda said earlier that all of the worlds in VRChat are works of art in their own right. But I think it's worth mentioning the significance of when the whole point of the world is to see 3D VR paintings and animations. Many of us may have looked at a drawing or painting before and took the time to appreciate the technique behind the finished piece, technique that sometimes I can't even properly comprehend. But that appreciation is amplified so much in VR, and literally immersing yourself in the snapshot of a world that the artist has created is such a magical experience. Try it, and maybe what I just said will hopefully actually make sense then. In fact, I ask that you try all of the types of worlds out there. Some will leave you in awe, some will have you on the floor laughing at how ridiculous they are. Some will make you forget about the hardships of life and give you a moment to yourself in your own little space to just exist in a virtual landscape of your choosing. And some might even inspire you to do things you otherwise may never have taken that first step into doing. Whatever you end up getting out of the worlds of VRChat, they only exist because of the sheer amount of diversity in the worlds available. And this is all made possible thanks to the community of creators that have contributed to the ever-growing universe of VRChat. So let's give it up for the creators in the VRChat community. You're all amazing. Keep it up. And you, thank you for watching this video. You're amazing. Stay fed, and good night.